The Bucs get a long-term extension done with a key member of the offensive line. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you 5 days a week along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. More good news on the injury front. The depth chart is released and the Buccaneers announced their captains. That is all coming up in a little bit. Starting this one off with the news that broke Tuesday night, and that is right tackle Luke Goedeke is getting a 4-year extension. Now, the full year-by-year breakdown is not available yet, but the terms are 4 years, $90 million with $50 million guaranteed. That solidifies the offensive line for at least the next 2 seasons and locks up an up-and-coming tackle in the league. Wirfs is signed through 2029. Bredesen got his deal in the offseason. He's locked up through 2027. Barton is entering the second year of his rookie deal, which means there's still the 5th-year option, which I imagine the Bucs are going to pick up. So he's under contract through 2028. And then Malk is signed through next season. Goedeke's extension kicks in next year, so he's on the team for the next 5 seasons and is now the 3rd highest paid right tackle in the NFL based on average annual value, behind Penei Sewell and Lane Johnson. And I know some of you are probably thinking exactly what my youngest son came into my room and was thinking and asked me, why would the Bucs give Goedeke that much money? And like my son, I'm sure a lot of you are basing that on the early impressions that you got when Goedeke struggled at guard. Since switching to tackle, he's been absolutely fantastic. PFF ranked the Bucs offensive tackle duo as one of the top 5 tackle duos in the league. Last year, Goedeke finished with a 75.8 pass blocking grade from PFF. And just for comparison, Penei Sewell, who seems to be the NFL's crown jewel, got a 74.1. Goedeke finished with a 73.7 overall grade. And not only that, but Goedeke has improved each of the last 2 years, showing that not only is tackle the more natural position for him, but that he can still get better. I think this is one of those contracts that once we're 2 years in, it's going to look like one of the biggest steals in the NFL. I also love the continuity that it shows the Bucs are dedicated to in the coming years. They love this group and they want to keep them together. The Bucs were one of the best offenses in the NFL last year with one of the best offensive lines. Now, that line is going to continue to grow and develop together, and they're all really young. The oldest player on the line is Ben Bredesen, who was 27. All the other guys on that starting offensive line are 26 years old. This has the makings of being one of the most consistent and dominant lines in the league for the next couple of seasons. This is great for Baker. This is great for Bucky and the rest of the running backs. And it's great for the Bucs, who locked up one of their priority pending free agents well before the offseason. One of the insiders, when I texted out the news, he reached back and asked which pending free agent would potentially be next in line for that extension. And going through the list, I would say it's either going to be Cade Otton or Zion McCollum. With McCollum, it gets a little tricky because if he continues to improve and has his best season yet in 2025, then he could potentially cost himself millions of dollars a year by signing early. So I think that's more of the long shot between these two. With Otton, he knows that he can be a big contributor in Tampa, and he's part of what they want to do. On another team, he may not find himself in that type of role. He could wind up as more of a situational guy rather than the lead tight end. The one exception to that might be if Jacksonville was interested. Their current tight end is Brenton Strange. I think we can all agree, even those of you that have reached out to me with your, we'll say, concerns about Cade Otton. I think we can all agree that Otton is a better tight end than Strange. And then, of course, Liam Cohen used Otton extensively last season as one of the primary pass catchers once Godwin and Evans went down, and then even after Evans came back. I could definitely see Otton as that type of guy that just wants to stay with the Bucs. He knows exactly what he's getting. He loves the team. He loves the coaching staff, loves the front office. The money probably won't be too different on the open market if it's between Tampa and Jacksonville. And then, of course, if it's between those two teams, there's also no difference in the state taxes to take that into account. I do not see guys like Mike Evans, Hassan Reddick, or Levante David signing an extension in season. Evans and David are going to take time and think about things as far as whether or not they're going to continue playing. I believe it's far more likely that Evans signs another deal rather than Levante. I'm already on record in saying that I believe this is Levante's last season in the NFL, but the Bucs aren't going to rush either of those deals unless either of those players starts to make a little noise that they want a deal done sooner than later. They don't want to play with, this being their last year on their contract. They want a little bit of security. Those are franchise players. They're franchise cornerstones. So you make sure you take care of them. And if Levante or Mike goes up to Jason and goes, hey, can we get an extra year done? Can we do a 1-year extension? Can we do a 2-year extension? Let's get this thing done. They're going to go ahead and take care of that. Beyond those two situations, there aren't really a lot of players that I can see the Bucs being in a rush to sign to extensions. They do have a lot of pending free agents. I've mentioned that numerous times on this show, but it's guys like Greg Gaines, Riley Dixon, Charlie Heck, Shep, Vildor, Izzy, and Deion Jones. Those are guys that you can kind of wait on. No disrespect to them. They're key contributors. They're important to what the Buccaneers want to accomplish this year, but they also aren't guys that you're going to say, we have to make sure we get this done right this minute, or, we're going to risk losing them in free agency. I don't think any of those guys are beyond replaceable. We know that Todd Bowles loves Christian Izien. Riley Dixon, we're hoping, looks as good in the regular season as he did in preseason, but these are guys that you can go out and you can find replacements easier than you can players like Otton, McCollum, Evans, and Levante. So the only other big deals that the Bucs would or could probably do are Otton and McCollum, with the exceptions, of course, being Evans and Levante. But this is just another example of Jason Light and his team doing a great job in finding talent and then growing that talent to keep in Tampa. The Bucs lead the league in the percentage of their roster being homegrown, with over 80% of the players. And yes, you can look at a draft class like the one in 2021 and say that it was a bust, but they've hit a lot more than they've missed over the last handful of years. And their current roster is a perfect example of that. Not only that, but you can look at 2021 and say, you know what? Those guys didn't pan out over the long term, but none of those guys were detrimental. None of those guys were irreplaceable. The Bucs already had replacements lined up and ready to go. More good news on the injury front. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Mazda's moving the game forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. Heading into 2025, the Bucs are focused on making sure that they're as unstoppable as possible, which is why they used their first-round draft pick on another weapon for quarterback Baker Mayfield. Emeka Egbuka is the kind of player many viewed as a luxury for the Bucs, but in reality, he's going to play a major role in their success. With Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan out, Egbuka is expected to play a pivotal role in the Bucs offense early in the season, and that's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing that next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service has always has your blind side covered. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and their trade master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can find the link in the show notes. You can scan the QR code if you're watching on YouTube. And we want to thank you all so much for helping us out. Some positive news on the injury front. Again, we talked yesterday about Otten, Tucker, and Tyke all returning to practice on Monday. Well, as the Bucs officially began practicing Wednesday for their game against the Falcons, cornerbacks Josh Hayes and Benjamin Morrison returned to the team. The only player to be held out was Christian Izien, who is dealing with that oblique strain. Now, Bowles told the media after practice that Morrison was limited and that his status for Sunday is still up in the air, and that's completely fine. I don't think that he should play on Sunday. I would love to see him. I would love to watch him. You know, we have yet to see him in a Buccaneers uniform on the field. Really excited to see him go out there and compete. But he's missed 4 weeks with this hamstring injury and was limited in his first practice back. I would rather they sit him and give him another week before throwing him out there and potentially re-aggravating it. We know how these soft tissue injuries are, and the Bucs honestly should be the leading expert in contracting and dealing with hamstring injuries. You have to take your time. If you rush back, you're guaranteed to injure it again, and then you're going to miss even more time. Morrison playing on Sunday is not going to be the difference between a win and a loss. Of course, as I say that, we're going to end up watching Drake London cook Jamel Dean for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, but Morrison himself isn't going to have the impact on this particular game that Tristan Wirfs or Chris Godwin would have. So keeping him out, making sure that he's ready to play against the Texans, in my opinion, would be the smarter play. Speaking of Tristan Wirfs, Greg Allman tweeted out that Wirfs was jogging and warming up with the rest of the offensive line on Wednesday, a massive step in the right direction for him to potentially return before October. Now, it's also not a certainty that he is back by then, but we talked on this show about a week or so ago that Jason Light was on WDAE with T-Kraz, and he said that he expects Wirfs to be back before Godwin. So having him out there running around, warming up is a really, really good sign. If you have Wirfs starting against Philly, let's just say that optimistically, you are in a great spot. I think making his way back before that game would give the Bucs a massive boost. But if you get him back and his season debut is week 4 against that Philadelphia defense, that is massive, absolutely massive for this offense. Then on top of all of that, you did have the release of the week 1 depth chart where there weren't really any surprises. Emeka Egbuka was officially named the number 2 receiver, which we all knew was coming. And I still stand by my belief that Egbuka winds up the number 2 receiver for this team at the end of the season. Even after the return of Godwin and McMillan, I think Egbuka is your wide receiver 2 in this offense for 2025. Defensively, Servassier Dennis is going to get the start at linebacker. And then rookie Jacob Parrish will get the start at nickel corner. Parrish was always believed to be the leader in the competition at the nickel position, but with Izzy and Likely out, it was even more evident that Parrish was going to get the nod this week against the Falcons. The only real, true surprise to me was wide receiver Cameron Johnson being listed as the top punt returner and kick returner alongside Sean Tucker. I thought for sure that Tez had both of those spots locked up with the way we saw him handle special teams. And then I thought the other kick returner instead of Sean Tucker was going to be Josh Williams. We saw how absolutely incredible he was as part of the kick return team in that final preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know, maybe this changes sooner than later if the Bucs don't see any kind of spark from Cam in his return abilities on Sunday against Atlanta. But one insider did point out that the Bucs may be erring on the side of caution, knowing that they're already down 2 receivers and that Tez offers the offense more, in terms of his ability than Cam Johnson does at the moment. The Bucs may just not want to risk losing him on a special teams play. Again, Josh Williams is listed as a kick returner. Tez Johnson is listed as a kick returner and a punt returner. They're just not at the top of the depth chart. We could see this play out during the game Sunday. If Cam Johnson has a couple of bad returns or, the Bucs have bad field position, all of a sudden you need that spark. You send Tez out there to return a punt. You send Josh Williams out there to return a kick. It harkens back to the days of Deshaun Jackson and Antonio Brown, that they weren't the full-time returners, but when the offense needed a spark, when the team needed a little bit of a boost, you would send those guys out onto the field because any time they were back there on punt return duties, they could make magic happen. Captains have been named. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. You want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring teams get eliminated each week until one team is left standing. You want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is where I go to place all my parlays, prop bets, game bets for just about every sport, and it definitely adds a little spice to your NFL Sundays. Right now, the Buccaneers are 2.5-point road favorites against the Atlanta Falcons with an over-under of 47.5. Meanwhile, rookie Emeka Egbuka is sitting at an over-under of 57.5 receiving yards in his NFL debut. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, and the Bucs voted on captains on Monday, and on Wednesday they were announced. No one should be surprised with the results. It's the same as last year. On offense, you have Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and Tristan Wirfs. On defense, you have Vita Vea, Lavonte David, and Antoine Winfield Jr. Those are the obvious choices and the right ones. I know there was some pushback among insiders and on Twitter about Godwin not being a captain, but he wasn't a captain last year either. They picked 3 on each side of the ball, and these are the 3 on offense that make the most sense. You all know how much I love Chris Godwin, but I cannot see replacing Baker, Evans, or Wirfs with Godwin as a captain. I just can't. Those are your 3 unquestioned leaders on the offensive side of the ball. That doesn't mean that Godwin's not a leader. It just means that he doesn't have a C on his chest. This is the 3rd year in a row that all 6 of these players were voted as captains by their teammates, and this marks the 12th straight year that Lavonte David has been a captain, and the 9th straight year that Mike Evans has been a captain. As for the rest, Vita leads the group with 4 selections, and then Mayfield, Wirfs, and Winfield are all captains for the 3rd time in Tampa. The only surprise to me, again, we're talking about special teams, is that the Bucs are not doing captains on special teams. In years past, there weren't any last year, but before that, the Bucs have always had, 1 or 2 special teams oriented guys. Usually it's the punter or the kicker, and then someone from the coverage unit as representatives for special teams. You want to talk about how special teams is a third of the game? Well, those, that third should probably have a captain or 2. I told the insiders that I expected Chase McLaughlin to be the special teams captain. And then if I had to guess, I would have said Josh Hayes would have been the other. He's been the top gunner on the team the last few years and made the roster largely in part because of his special teams play. But I don't think anyone can truly argue with the captains that were named, other than people being disappointed or upset that Godwin wasn't one. I don't know who else on the defensive side of the ball you would choose over Vita Vea, Lavonte David, and Antoine Winfield Jr. And again, like it has been the last couple of years, there is a captain at every level of the defense. There's one on the, with his hand in the dirt on the line. There's one in the middle of the field, and then there's one in the secondary. So, the players got it right. Those were the right 6 captains for this team to lead them in to 2025. All right, a couple of housekeeping notes real quick. I want to mention this now because I know I'm as excited as all of you are for these live episodes to return. Typically, last season we would go live on Friday evening. We would do the final preview of the game. We would do bold predictions in the group chat, all of that. And then, of course, after games, going live then. That is still the plan for this season. However, I do have to note that, last year I was able to keep it pretty much consistent all the way across because my son was not playing hockey due to his ACL tear. He's back at hockey. You guys know that. So my schedule is going to get a little wonky. He has Friday night games. So there will be some Fridays that I just cannot go live. He has Sunday games. There will be times when I cannot watch the Bucs game as it is happening. That is going to delay any potential live show that I do. So I want you guys to be aware that I'm not always going to go live in those situations. I will do my best to do it as much, as often, and as consistently as possible, but I am at the mercy of somebody else's schedule and not my own. That's why I remind you guys, turn on those notifications so that when I do go live, you know when it's happening. And then, make sure you are coming back tomorrow. It is the first crossover Thursday of the year. I will be joined by Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman to preview this week's game between the Bucs and Falcons. Until then, please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Follow on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those places. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get podcasts. Become an insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Sorry, this one's a little bit shorter than normal, but coming back with that crossover episode on tomorrow's show. And then an exciting announcement is coming up. You want to make sure that you're stayed tuned for that. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.